All right, getting there. Just wait for everybody to join up and come along. Head them up, move them down. Oh, there we go. Oh, shoot. All right, I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there. I think we are getting there. Sweet. All right, so I believe that we are live. Hello, folks. Just bear with me just one moment. Just have to get some particulars out of the way. I know I should have done this beforehand, but apologize. Let's see here. All right. Well, about as good as we're going to get. All right, cool. So, today's date, January 26, 2019, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and most, Will Buchanan. On how the Frack We Got Here, we do try to take the week's events and honestly try to make sense out of it all. Before we do get started, this is an adult podcast, which means adult content, language, and things of a graphic nature may be shown. So viewer discretion is advised. So please take the next few minutes to make the necessary adjustment. Okay, that's three. If you're still around, welcome. All right, so, well, this has been a very interesting week, I will say that much. And honestly, to get it all started, I'm going to go in a little bit of a chronological order before we get to the main thing of what I want to talk about. But for all those who were affected by the shutdown, it amazes me so about President Cheeto, Agent Orange, Baby Huey, that he can ignore the cries of many Americans who are suffering. However, it took this, and the reason why I point this out, this next story I'm about to show you, I believe was the sole reason that finally made Donald Trump crack, was pretty much this story.
In a day filled with breaking news, we've also learned that the Federal Aviation Administration has announced a full ground stop at New York's LaGuardia Airport. It's because of the government shutdown. There's a shortage of air traffic controllers. They've been calling out sick because they're not getting paid. So CBS News transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve is joining us now on the phone. Chris, what do we know about this ground stop? What's going on?
Well, it's not an entire ground stop,
okay.
and I know the term ground stop gets confusing, but flights are arriving and departing. What they have done is hold certain flights bound for LaGuardia, and then they have slowed the rate of departures. Basically, they are slowing down. If you think about the airport as like a freeway, they are reducing the number of open lanes. So you're going to have less traffic coming in, less traffic going out, because there are staffing issues at two FAA centers that deal predominantly with planes that are in the air, sort of the air traffic controllers who handle a flight after it takes off but before it starts to land. There's shortages reported at the D.C. TRACON, ZDC as it's known in aviation circles, and the Jacksonville one, and that's resulting in these delays. LaGuardia has the ground stop right now. You're going to see backups at Newark, Philadelphia, Tampa, likely JFK, and that could spread into the D.C. area as well. And, if you think about the national air system as like a freeway, well, you get a backup on a major freeway. You get an accident on a major freeway, you get a backup that stretches quite a ways. So,
of course, it's a domino effect.
Right. Probably not a wonderful day to fly. I can tell you I flew this morning out of D.C. to Chicago. We left on time. We landed early. So not everyone's going to be affected. But I would not be surprised if my return flight tonight is delayed in part because of all of this. The Air Traffic Control Union has been warning that this could happen. We've seen an increase in sick calls with TSA officers. So it's probably not a surprise that you're seeing some of this happen with the air traffic controllers. They haven't been paid in over a month. We know that there have been sick calls. We know that some have resigned over this issue, and air traffic control staffing is not where certainly the union thinks it should be in the first place.
So listen, then I have to ask you this question. Whenever I hear about the air traffic controllers, I remember how, air traffic controllers always on a list of most stressful jobs. Just regularly, right? I can't imagine the additional stress of not getting paid and having to pay your bills. We've discussed a lot about the TSA workers calling out because they don't want to work without getting paid or simply cannot and have to find another way of making money. And I think as a passenger, is it still safe to fly? Is it?
Anne-Marie, it is. Let me read you. We just received a statement from the FAA on this saying we've experienced a slight increase in sick leave at 2 air traffic control facilities affecting New York and Florida. As with severe storms, we will be adjusting operations to a safe rate to match available controller resources. We've mitigated the impacts by augmenting staffing, rerouting traffic, and increasing spacing between aircraft as
So pretty much we're just going to leave that right there because the guy's pretty much from the FAA and he's pretty much trying to save face as far as saying that, yes, there was a complete stop because as you can see, they reported there was a complete stop in LaGuardia. Now, you would think at this point, like I said, chronological order, so bear with me. So at this point, the TSA called out, the IRS, which handles tax returns, called out, and now flight traffic controllers have called out. So pretty much two branches of how our travel works in the U.S. At this point, we're pretty much shut down. Now, you would think, on top of everything else, you didn't think Baby Orange could keep going. Well, the same, like I said, it's been a weird Friday. So when that happened, coincidentally enough, this happened.
Nice with the end. The longest government shutdown in U.S. history is over. Before Christmas, President Trump said he wouldn't sign any spending bill that did not include $5.7 billion for a border wall. On day 35, the president gave in, agreeing to reopen the government temporarily without any new money for a wall. Roughly 800,000 workers, federal workers who missed a second paycheck today will get back pay and their regular checks soon. Nancy Cordes begins our coverage.
I am very proud to announce today that we have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government.
President Trump relented today with little to show for his month-long fight.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Within hours, Congress voted to fund the government through mid-February and issue back pay to hundreds of thousands of furloughed employees.
In fairness, Mr. President, this never should have happened.
Just yesterday, the president was vowing not to cave.
We have to have border security. We have to have a wall in order to have border security. You cannot have border security without a wall.
But today, a sick out by unpaid air traffic controllers led to scattered ground stops. At New York's LaGuardia, 500 flights were delayed. Passengers trapped on board for hours.
It's been a little frustrating.
By early afternoon, the White House announced a deal as GOP leaders looked for a silver lining.
I think when history writes about it, it'll show a president that wanted to find common ground.
Federal workers who missed a second paycheck today may have to wait a few days to get what they're owed. And legions of federal contractors will get no reimbursement.
5 weeks. Think of the suffering, the uncertainty, the pain.
Securing billions for a border wall has been a presidential priority for 2 years.
How much of all of this do you think is about the new power dynamic and his desire to show you who's really in charge?
I don't want to make any characterizations of the president's motivation. You'll have to ask him.
Speaker Pelosi's Senate counterpart was less reluctant to weigh in.
No one should ever underestimate the speaker, as Donald Trump has learned.
Mr. Trump did extract one promise. Congressional leaders will now spend the next 3 weeks negotiating a border security package, with consequences if they fail.
If we don't get a fair deal from Congress, the government will either shut down on February 15th again, or I will use the powers afforded to me under the laws and the Constitution of the United States to address this emergency.
The president did not say whether that deal would have to include some or all of the $6 billion in border wall funding he's been seeking. Democrats say their opposition hasn't changed. So, Jeff, while the government is reopening tonight, there's a chance we could be back in this same position next month.
All right, Nancy Cordes, thank you very much.
With the reopening of the federal.
Personally, it's funny, and I'll say it's funny just because they turned around and sat there and said, of course, we should be happy. You know, a lot of people who are government workers, who are federal workers, don't have, are finally getting back pay. Now, if I was them, they need to set up a spot to where folks can go ahead and get cut checks, because, a few days makes the difference as far as making rent and food and utilities, medical bills, whatever have you. Glad they're getting paid. It's still kind of disappointing that if you're a contractor, you still get shafted. So, yes, it is a good thing that folks are, folks who are in these multiple jobs who, had to tread water for almost a month are finally getting their payback so they can take care of their responsibilities and just survive. That's a great thing. But at the same time, we have to also understand, yes, we can sit there and say that the plight of 800,000 plus workers was in jeopardy. You think that should have been enough for a president to go, you know what, I need to let this wall go. Of course, it's baby Huey. He's not going to let the wall go. But you would think, out of somebody that has compassion enough, would be like, okay, the wall, it needs to be let go. It's not fathomable. In his case, he decided just to stick with it. And he keeps on saying border security because he doesn't want to say wall. That's PR. Trust me when I say that entire thing is nothing but PR. Because he said the wall so many times, and those that believe this con man also believe a wall is necessary. And I have been saying this ever since he brought up the stupid idea. Walls haven't worked since planes have been invented. So again, this whole thing of he says we can't have border security without a wall. He has already sat there and said, and it's funny where he sat there and said they need to come up with a border package. No. The only thing you want to hear, Mr. Baby Huey, is the simple fact of the matter is you want to hear you have funding for a wall. And it's amazing to me that someone says, if you want to look up, if you look up, Rob Williams said it best, under redundant, see redundant in the dictionary, he believes that a wall will save us. And I'm like, no. And he says this way, and it's kind of funny in his previous speech before he announced the end of the shutdown, he was like, many other countries have had walls and they've been successful. No. Every country that ever had a wall eventually broke theirs down. You could sit there, he started naming off countries that haven't had their walls up, especially the city of wonderful San Antonio, who has a wall that's 150 miles away, and it's not really a wall, it's just a barrier for water. I can't make this up when it comes to baby Huey. He just has this notion that he believes this wall is the answer all for illegal immigrants, just not the ones that are not working in his hotel. But like I said, happy that the government shutdown is over for now, because when it really comes down to it, it's going to be whether or not that the guy, it's going to be whether or not that they decide to, I'm going to be honest, Pelosi and the Democrats are not going to give him the wall that he's asking for. So we might as well go ahead and get that out the way. And he says border funding, they've already sat there and said we'll pay more as far as for border patrol and things of that nature, but you are not getting the wall. And so could we see ourselves back here in the same place again 3 weeks later? Maybe. Now, I don't think Trump's going to risk it again because too many of his so-called rich friends fly in airplanes. So I doubt he's going to actually get to that point because the FAA, the TSA, the IRS, and every other federal worker that actually is forced to call back into work has pretty much told Trump, fuck you, if you ain't paying us, we're not going to work. And I, for one, can't blame them. But moving forward, like I said, it's been a very good Friday, but this part, the next story I'm going to talk about over the next few videos we have about them is the Covington students. If you've been under a rock, then there was another story that came out this week of Covington students that were pretty much being dicks toward Native Americans, especially Native Americans who were protesting, and these kids pretty much mocked them, got into the face of one of them. And of course, everybody's always said, well, you didn't see all the videos. You didn't see what else caused them to act this way. And yes, I know there was another group of black Israelites there, Hebrew Israelites, and you could argue that yes, they started calling them names, but at the same time, is no one questioning why a bunch of kids went to go protest at a women's reproductive rights rally? Am I the only one that just sat there and went, wait a minute, what is a group of all guys going to a women's rally about the rights of their body to protest? Am I the only cat that was like, wait a minute, what school sanctioned this? That a bunch of men can go to a women's rally to talk about women's rights and protest? I mean, who at that Catholic school signed off on this? But anyway, of course, when it came out, multiple stories and forward videos coming forward saying, the boys are innocent. It's really the Native Americans' fault. They weren't the ones that started this. And I'm like, it amazes me so that you have to understand, for me, when I look at this, whenever I hear stories about them spinning it and going that far and just, for lack of words, just pretty much saying, well, it's not their fault and it's not, they were this, they were that, they were children, let them be. And I'm thinking to myself, no, we shouldn't let them be. Matter of fact, we should hold them freaking accountable. I mean, they decided to go out there and protest, and the same part is, it's always funny how other folks will take up for that. Like, case in point.
Students, I've never seen people so happy to destroy a kid's life.
To those politicians supported by the NRA that allow the continued slaughter of our children and our future, I say get your resumes ready.
Ooh, who wrote that line? That was lame grandstanding. Is that too harsh to Mr. Hogg? Not really, because by criticizing him, I'm complimenting him. He's now revolutionary.
He saw his classmates killed, and that's exactly why he shouldn't be involved in formulating a response to it.
Yeah, but
because he's a kid.
But forgive me if I don't want a lesson on the Second Amendment from a 16-year-old. Forgive me if I don't want to watch a 9-year-old tell me that her dream is a world without guns. My world, I want a world without Islamists. I wish that was true, too.
If someone wants to kill you with a gun, they're going to kill you with a gun. Now, do you want to fight back, or do you want to sit and run into a corner and go, okay, well, I don't know what to do? They're going to kill you, they're going to kill you. Are you going to fight back, or are you just going to turn into a...
Don't say it. Ingram's original tweet said, David Hogg rejected by 4 colleges to which he applied and whines about it. Dinged by UCLA with a 4.0 GPA, totally predictable given acceptance rates.
So he wants to be treated as an adult, and he has every right to his opinion. You need to challenge some of the things that he's saying.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't. Because as Ben White at Politico reminded us, that would be dehumanizing the children. So you have to sit back obediently and pretend that they're wise.
I've never seen people so happy.
In that sense, keep in mind, that's Fox, where, again, they immediately went after the Parkland students, specifically David Hogg and a few others, and pretty much had told these folks, well, it's only because, they're children. We children have to be defended. Okay. Here's the funny part. Now, aside from the Covenant students, there was a picture of them where it showed about them being in blackface at basketball games. Yes, I cannot make this up. There is a picture out there circulating of them showing one black student who was facing them in a basketball game, and there's one kid in blackface. And the funny part is, their answer and response is what amazes me so.
Sam, there have been so many stories in the hours after the initial viral Twitter, which put that out there. In fact, I saw, I think it was a Daily Mail story. Somebody had, yesterday, somebody had gone out, looked at all the video from your school, and something like 5 years ago, there was a pep rally where one of the members of the school body had appeared to have blackface on. People have even asked you to explain that. How do you explain that?
I just explained it as showing our school spirit. We have many themes like nerd, business, white out, blue out, black out, as you've seen in the video. Ever since I've gone to Covcath, we haven't been able to wear black paint because of the video, but I know the kids meant nothing by it. It's just showing school spirit.
And that was one of the days, the so-called blackout days.
A blackout blackout day. Yeah, a blackout. You know, when I first saw that story, I was like, how the fuck can any school allow that? Because think about that for a second. How the fuck can any school sit there and say, with a straight face, you have a nerd day, you have a business day, you have a blue out, a white out, and a blackout? How the fuck can you really sit there with a straight face and say there's nothing wrong with that? But then again, it's amazing how some people will coddle the children, because this is all basically PR. Let me be honest, this is all PR spinning at the moment. So, not surprised that Fox News be the first ones to show these kids, white shirt, straight tie, serious face. It's called training. They were PR trained to go on here and look stoic and look innocent and say we didn't know any better and say that all of these things. Reason being all of these things because they can sit there and say, well, we're just showing school spirit. Really? I've never seen another school have a person completely in blackface and think that this will not have any reparations. I mean, it's almost the ignorance of some culture. But then again, Covington Catholic High School is in Kentucky, so to say about the South, plenty of wonderful thinkers if you're white. But aside from the simple fact of the matter, it's just that it is ignorance being taught. And when that ignorance is being taught, we shouldn't be surprised that the next generation themselves are being ignorant because they're given a pass. And that's one of the many problems that's wrong with our society, is that a lot of these young men, specifically Caucasian men, are given passes on their actions, and then we wonder why they grow up to be terrible adults. In the same sense, like I said, not just white men, but I mean, you gotta think about it. If you bring up a child and pretty much excuse them for everything that they do, and they aren't held accountable for any responsibility of the consequences of their decisions, then you shouldn't be surprised as they become older, they find other ways to blame people for their actions. That same kid who says that blackface is just showing school spirit will be the same guy that grows up and thinks there's nothing wrong with calling a black person a nigger. And that's how they get their ass kicked. And then the coup de grace of the whole thing was that this other story I'm going to show, where the guy literally, the bishop at the school apologized to the teen. Nick Swanson, the guy in the video that was, I showed you guys in the video on the red MAGA hat that was facing the Native American. In this article here, the bishop of the school apologizes to the kid basically because he's now known. And the thing about people with bigot and xenophobial tendencies, it's like shining a light on them as a cockroach. They don't like the fact that they're in the media now. They don't like the fact that their image and what they're being judged on is out there now. They can't stand it. So again, this is wonderful PR, which, by the way, the same PR firm that's for these kids is actually the same PR firm that's basically that's connected to Mitch McConnell. Turtle Man from the Senate. Yes, I'm talking about that guy who has also obstructed the shutdown because he refused to take any part of it because he's too busy trying to save his ass. But it amazes me so that the head attendant of the school apologized to the kid. I don't see any apologies to the Native American. Now, say what you will, those kids were not supposed to be there. But it seems like these days, like the media spin is that, well, they were engaged, which is kind of funny because you won't give the same consideration to those who were protesting against gun violence, those who were protesting against police injustice, to those who were protesting against women's rights. You won't give them the same consideration that you gave these kids because, let's be honest, the kids were in a place they weren't supposed to be anyway. So aside from that, which I think is just, makes you wonder if art was being taught in schools or the lack of things are being taught in schools. Another thing I wanted to show, this to me was probably stupid because this came out on Monday and I figured this is the best way to start on Monday, but I'm just going to play the video and let you guys see it.
Now, Representative Sane.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Colleagues, we are standing in the moral arc of history today as we celebrate a reverend that changed history for all Americans. We have come a long way on that arc since the Reconstruction, when whites and blacks alike were in nearly equal numbers lynched for the crime of being Republican. What we celebrate today is the courage and fortitude of Martin Luther King and many others who endured beatings, ridicule.
I'm going to stop it right there. The reason why I'm going to stop it right there is because, yeah, you heard it. She tried to sit there and say that that whites were just as equal as blacks in getting hanged, lynched, because they were Republican. I know Monday, like I said, Monday was us honoring a great man, Dr. Martin Luther King, which is another thing that fucking bothers me. For some of you white folks out there that seem to have this fucking problem, how the fuck can you not say Martin Luther King? Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King. It's almost like, I swear to you, it's almost like half of them immediately go from King to Coon, and you can hear them say it. It is like, phonetics aside, how do you get from King to Coon? I mean, we've already seen 2 newscasters do it, and yet this person, who was literally reading from a sheet of paper, can still turn around and still almost say it. And you get to there and say, well, she was reading. I'm like, she's a politician. She's supposed to be good at reading because you're supposed to be reading documents. That's how you basically keep up with things. It amazes me so that in the same sense, she's got the absolute nerve to turn around and sit there and say that whites have just been lynched as much as blacks. No. Oh, you haven't. In any sense of the word, you haven't. And matter of fact, how in the world do you sit there and get off? Because if I was in that assembly, I would be like, bullshit, as loud as I could. Which is probably the reason why I'm not a politician, because I will immediately call out folks like, well, whites have been hung just as much as blacks. Bullshit. Of course, everybody looking at me like, yeah, I said it. I said, because where did she get her facts right about this? And it amazes me so where along the lines you're going to see individuals that did exactly that. And the fact part is, I'm like I said, how does it that was that quiet in that room where someone had to sit there and go, did this bitch really just say what I think she just said? Amazingly enough, it falls on crickets. But, what a wonderful way to start a Monday. A Monday of this week that has went this crazy to where, and again, like I said, this whole week has been nothing but protests, sit-downs, and eventually the government reopening. However, some things that did happen during this week that I did enjoy, because they do tell a lot about where we stand. Again, I know I talked about the turtle man, Mitch McConnell, but this actually happened during the week before the government reopening, which I did really enjoy, and I love the fact that people did this.
There's the furloughed federal employees being carted out after protesting outside Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's office this afternoon. They were demanding that lawmakers open the government. Tomorrow, the U.S. Senate will vote on 2 competing bills to achieve that. But as CNN's Manu Raju reports, right now, neither the Republican bill nor the Democratic one looks likely to secure the magic 60 votes.
Tensions rising on day 33 of the government shutdown, with protesters arrested outside of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's office. And in private, Speaker Nancy Pelosi making this pitch to her members. Stick together. Democrats, she said, must demand the White House reopen the government before any discussions about immigration and border security. The strength, she said, is in their numbers.
We're not going to compromise on our values.
But frustration among some Democrats mounting.
I think everyone's frustrated that we aren't actually solving this. I think we need to open the government and immediately get in a room, kick out the media, and get something done.
You think she's handling this well, the Speaker?
I think it's a difficult situation, and I think that it's going to take people coming together to be able to solve this.
Others dodge the question.
I actually have to get to a meeting.
I'd be happy to talk to you another time.
Hi.
Question about the shutdown real quickly. Can you make sense of the president?
Thank you.
All this comes amid polls showing that most voters say Trump's demand to build a wall along the border with Mexico is not worth a shutdown. And as House Democrats pass more bills this week to reopen the government that have been mostly ignored by McConnell. Tomorrow, the Senate will vote on whether to advance two competing plans, including one
there just because, like I said, this is before the government reopened on Friday. But the one thing I wanted to show was that, well, one, that people aren't taking anymore. I mean, people are, and here's the thing, here's one other thing, that the fact that I said people aren't taking that anymore, and they shouldn't. Reason being, you shouldn't at all. But at the same time, here's what I also say. As a politician, you work for us. You know, you are, it's almost like a politician and a professional sports player have two things in common. You eventually have to talk to the media. At the same time, you're either working for someone or you're working for all of us. And politicians are working for all of us. And here's my thing that I'll say about politicians. You guys honestly don't have the right to sit there and say, well, no comment. You work for us. And I say this to Democrats as well as I say to Republicans. You work for us. You guys do not have can't sit there and say when we want some freaking answers, you guys can't turn around and say, well, no comment, or I have to run to a meeting. Well, here's the thing here's the thing that I'll point out, that during this shutdown, when folks weren't getting paid, politicians were still getting paid. Politicians still got travel. Politicians still got protection. Politicians still had their health care. Politicians still had all their benefits. And these were the same politicians that couldn't get Baby Huey to budge because he held the entire country hostage for a fucking wall. And yet, when it's time for you to answer questions, you above all else can't sit there and say what sit there and be honest with us. Yes, we're being held up because basically Trump held us up for a wall. That's why again, it makes no sense that, folks, when you're talking to them, will turn around and it will literally turn around and sit there and say, well, I have no comment on that. Pelosi had a point. And the thing I've been saying about Democrats is the same thing I've been saying for like the last year and a half. The reason why Democrats sometimes fail is because they don't stay united. What did Pelosi say to do? Stay united. Now, do I believe that they should have hammered harder against Trump? Yeah, I think so. Because the Republicans aren't going to do it. I mean, the Republicans are pretty much hoping that their election that comes up, which will be in 2020, they're too busy trying to hold on to make sure, but at this point it's all too but determined to know that Trump may either be impeached or he may be a one-term president. Because, let's be honest, he has done enough to show why he shouldn't get a second term. And the way Mueller's working, which we're going to cover that story momentarily, he may not make it to the end of his presidency. I mean, that's what The Simpsons called it anyway. But before I get to that story, there was another story I wanted to point out about during the shutdown. So I know I'm going backwards and forwards here, so work with me. I had a set rundown until Friday, so I apologize if the story that I'm going to show is a little beforehand, a little afterhand. But the thing about it is, the one story I want to show, and this just tells you the kind of cabinet that Trump surrounds himself and the people he surrounds himself with. For all those that don't know who Wilbur Ross is, Wilbur Ross is pretty much the Commerce Secretary. And when he was asked about the furlough of workers and what they need to do to make things meet, basically this is what he said.
Mr. Secretary, there are reports that there are some federal workers who are going to homeless shelters to get food.
Well, I know they are, and I don't really quite understand why, because as I mentioned before, the obligations that they would undertake, say a borrowing from a bank or a credit union, are in effect federally guaranteed. So the 30 days of pay that some people will be out, there's no real reason why they shouldn't be able to get a loan against it.
Michael, do you find that tone deaf or no?
Stop that right there. Just because I just wanted him to say that part. I don't understand why federal workers can't get a loan or go to a food bank or be able to do this, and they're all federally insured areas. Okay, keep in mind, Wilbur Ross literally has a value of over $700 million, and so the fact of the matter is he has a large stock in Goldman Sachs. So it's interesting to me that the Secretary of Commerce has really nothing to fucking worry about because he's loaded. And that's the disconnect. And that's the disconnect with Trump's cabinet and the American people. If you are from a place of safety and you're from a place of well-off, then you're not going to understand what it is to struggle. And his whole attitude and answer to how he dictated that, how he sat there and didn't understand that workers that weren't in the same caliber as him, didn't have the same means as him, didn't have the same pay as him, is going to turn around and say, well, I mean, you can go up there and get a loan. No, you can't. Because banks, I hate to break it to you, Wilbur, but banks will only talk to you when you have more money to the point to where they know they can get it from you. Banks ain't going to talk to people who don't have a dime in the name. Let's just be honest. Now, I understand because you're worth $700 million. Things in your case, you're well off. So again, you're not always. So again, it's like the disconnect and out of touch, and really the most insensitive thing you can say to a person who was a federal government worker whose job at that point was not paying them, and you want to turn around and tell them they have to get a loan. I'm surprised you didn't have windows being. I didn't realize you had bricks being thrown your window that night. Simple fact of the matter is just the level of stupidity. Really, is really what it is. So again, he did get roasted for that. And like I said, Trump only picks the best people. But it seems like these days Trump only picks the people that are associated with being well off versus those who are. For lack of better words, how can I put this? Pretty much those who only see money are going to say money. Now, going back to what Trump said about the fact that we're going to reopen the wall. He doesn't want to concede that he lost. He doesn't want to concede because Trump's a bully. Bullies, one thing about bullies is if you confront a bully, they back down because all they got is bark. When you step up and say, okay, what else you got? Eventually they back down. He's done it. Trump has done that to the UN. He did that with Putin. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised he did that to Pelosi because Pelosi wasn't having shit. But then again, he decides to say this as far as once the deal was made.
With Chuck Schumer and see if they'll have to see what happens. They're meeting to see if they can work out something, maybe on a temporary basis where we start. But we have a lot of alternatives. There are a lot of people that want this to happen.
If Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer can come to some sort of agreement, will you support the results of this?
Well, it depends what the agreement is. I mean, yeah, but if they come to a reasonable agreement, I would support it. Yeah.
Even if it has no wall money? Or does it have to have wall money?
I only, look, I have other alternatives if I have to, and I'll use those alternatives if I have to. We want to go through the system.
Why did you decide to agree to Nancy Pelosi to?
Well, it's really her choice. I mean, I would have done it in a different location, but I think that would be very disrespectful to the State of the Union to pick some other place. I could have done it. I could have gone to a big auditorium and gotten 25,000 people in one day, and you've been there many times. But I think that would be very disrespectful to the State of the Union. So what she said I thought was actually reasonable. We'll have the State of the Union when the shutdown is over.
When do you think that's going to be?
That I can't tell you. But we have a lot of alternatives, but we need.
Pretty much. That was, and again, I understand, that was before Friday. The one thing he kept harping on is the one thing I wanted to talk about, was that he kept on saying he has alternative options. Now, again, good PR, but for all those that doesn't know what he means, or pretty much has an idea of it by now, he's talking about the ability to initiate a national emergency. Now, for all those that doesn't know how that works, okay, same way like George Bush did with Katrina, the same way like President Obama did with the hurricanes that happened during his presidency and other national disasters. They can declare a national emergency in a certain area, which basically gives them the ability to release funding to help with humanitarian efforts or things of that effort, or a war effort or things of that nature. The problem is those national emergency powers, they have to be approved by Congress, which means that the president believes that he can turn around and activate these powers, bypass Congress, and immediately get access to funding from various areas of government, and thinks that he could fund the border. He can fund his border wall that way. The problem with that type of thinking is it has to be approved by the House and it has to be approved by the Senate. And you have a House full of Democrats that have the majority there, and as long as you know that the Democrats have majority, they're going to have a hell no moment. So again, the way he talks, the reason why he doesn't say that is, well, basically he doesn't really have people there to tell him the truth. And the truth of it all is he cannot honestly instigate that. And that's the thing that he wants to say so bad that he thinks he can get away with, but he's really not. There's no way around that mess. So again, this is Trump saying, well, I have alternative means. And it's kind of funny, he keeps on mentioning, I'll do this if I have to. Well, really? Because during that infamous meeting that you brought the cameras in, and you had Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi right there, and they got you on video so many times saying, so if the shutdown happens, you'll own it, right? It's all you. And of course, you know what? Fine, Chuck Schumer. If the shutdown happens, it's completely my fault, nobody else's. I'll take the blame, and we'll go from there. And Chuck smiled. Chuck smiled because it's like he got you on tape, and there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it. And to me, I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, if you were a Trump supporter, you're still like, yeah, Trump, go ahead and take the responsibility. If you're guys like us, we're smiling. Because at this point, there is nothing you can say or do to take away from the simple fact of the matter that, yes, you just fucked up and admitted something that can be used against you later. In the same sense where he told Pelosi, oh, I have the votes, it'll pass. Pelosi's like, no, you don't. Pelosi fact-checked him. I think Pelosi has done the one thing that we need to do every time Trump talks. Fact-check the hell out of him. And I kind of wish there was a buzzer, especially during the State of the Union, which now that the government is reopened, Pelosi will eventually invite him to the House to give the State of the Union address. But I so want, and this is just me, I know it may never happen, but I so want that when he does his State of the Union address, there should be a fact-check buzzer right there, that every time he says something, you either get a ding or an eh. Just... to me, that would be great, because at that point, he can't say shit. At that point, if he sits there and says, we're going to get a wall, Mexico's going to pray for it, the whole thing with the Mueller investigation is a witch hunt, which we all know at this point. It's not, because the next story that we're about to go over very soon. But that's just, when I was thinking about that whole story, it was literally and figuratively the craziest thing that at this point, there's still a cult of people behind Trump that honestly just doesn't make any sense. And you're right, Derek. In a way, he's a lame duck president, which is good. To a certain extent, yeah, I can kind of understand that, Derek. But it's just at the same time, it's like, it comes to a point to where you would think, for a lot of us that didn't vote for President Trump, realize this is exactly what we're getting. But it's amazing to me how many people who voted for Trump are like, this is not what I expected. And I'm thinking to myself, have you seen the way he runs his businesses? It's the same way he's running America. Completely bankrupt, hire immigrant workers, and then blame them and not pay them. At the same time, put us all in bankruptcy. But apparently, you can't put the United States of America on Chapter 7 or 11, if you choose. But also, another thing did happen on Friday, which again was interesting as enough. And like I said, if you've been under a rock, you won't know what happened to Roger Stone. So here you go.
Do not accuse Roger Stone of directly colluding with the Russians to influence the election, but they do bring the Robert Mueller investigation one step closer to the Trump campaign, involving a man who's been a friend and confidant of Donald Trump's for more than 30 years.
Roger Stone was defiant after a brief federal court appearance in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where FBI agents arrested him this morning and began searching his house. Robert Mueller's prosecutors accused Stone of lying to Congress and urging a friend to lie too. Outside the courthouse, Stone said he never meant to mislead any investigators.
I will plead not guilty to these charges. I will defeat them in court. I believe this is a politically motivated investigation.
Prosecutors say Stone lied to the House Intelligence Committee in September 2017 about his efforts to discover more about emails hacked by the Russians from the Clinton campaign and the Democrats and passed along to WikiLeaks, which made thousands of them public. Court documents say Stone bragged to the Trump campaign early in the summer of 2016 that WikiLeaks had documents harmful to Clinton's campaign. After WikiLeaks dumped out its first set of stolen emails just before the Democratic National Convention, the documents say a senior Trump campaign official, who's not named, was directed to contact Stone to see what other dirt WikiLeaks might have on the Clinton campaign. Prosecutors say Stone then urged a friend to get to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange living in Ecuador's embassy in London. And they say Stone began urging a radio host, Randy Credico, who interviewed Assange on his program, to find out more about what WikiLeaks had on Clinton. In early October 2016, court documents say a high-ranking Trump campaign official asked about the status of future WikiLeaks dumps, and 4 days later, the website released thousands of emails stolen from Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. Stone has steadfastly denied knowing ahead of time what WikiLeaks was planning to release.
I received nothing from WikiLeaks or from the Russians. I passed nothing on to Donald Trump or the Trump campaign.
But prosecutors say he lied to Congress by claiming he had no emails or texts documenting his efforts to find out what WikiLeaks was up to. And they say he urged Credico to lie too, even invoking a character in one of the Godfather movies who lies to Congress.
I never knew no Godfather.
And prosecutors say Stone threatened to take away Credico's dog.
Like other Mueller indictments, this indictment suggests there is more to come, that there are other shoes to drop, that he is looking at other people for similar conduct.
Stone is out on bail for now, soon to face Mueller's prosecutors in court. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
It amazed me how he went to the Tricky Dick. It's amazing how he immediately went to Tricky Dick status on that. But yes, Roger Stone, the number 3 guy. I think we're like number 2 now. This is almost like watching The Celebrity Apprentice. You're like, everybody that's close to Trump eventually gets arrested. And in this case, Roger Stone, they raided, the guy's house got raided in the middle of the night. He literally got arrested. Honestly, it is the funniest thing. Like I said, Friday was a good day. Now, for all those that are wondering about Roger Stone, where that comes from, again, he still is a Trump advisor. They keep on saying, they keep on saying that he was an ex-Trump advisor, which he still is. Anybody that you've advised over 30 years is not going to turn around and immediately go, well, you know what, I don't think I'm going to help you anymore. And the thing about it is, they keep on saying it's a witch hunt, there's no collusion. Here's the thing you need to understand. Everybody that Mueller has indicted has eventually been found guilty of honestly everything short of treason. Think about it. Paul Manafort, Michael Floyd, Michael Cohen, and like 8 other people I can't name right now off the top of my head. But everybody Mueller has indicted has been found guilty, flipped, or has become like a singing canary. And the thing about it is, now I think the same thing's going to happen to Roger Stone. Roger Stone can sit there and pull a PR spin and be like, it's all a witch hunt, it's not possible, this is not me, A, B, and C. He can sit there and say all he wants to. But Mueller's track record in indicting individuals has so far been 100%. So I'm expecting Roger Stone to flip. Because, again, when faced with jail or the face of turning state's evidence, like any other gangster movie, either you're going to wind up dead or you're going to wind up talking. And I think Roger Stone is going to wind up talking. And that doesn't bode well for Trump, who immediately sat there and said, defended his friends, said there was no collusion, this is all a witch hunt, this is all just one big mess. And I'm thinking to myself, ever since this Mueller investigation started a year ago, he has actually found a crap load of obstruction of justices, improper campaign funds, misuse of power, things of that nature. And of course, he did find that one woman who says up and down that she wasn't a spy for Russia with the NRA, and turns out she's now she's a witness too. So again, it must have been something they found on her. So again, yeah, you might have had some spy tendencies. Roger Stone's no different. He's just there and try to fight this. Good luck, because like I said, every Mueller indictment has always led to either a flip or a conviction or a prison or all the above. Either way, we're just looking forward to it, because just like I think we're finally getting to the season finale of The Apprentice, which thank God this needs to be over. But another story I wanted to point out tonight, because like I said, this has been a weird week, and again, the whole idea of blackface comes up again, and the reason why it comes up again is basically because of this story.
Florida Secretary of State Michael Ortel resigned today after pictures emerged of him wearing blackface at a Halloween party over a decade ago. But believe it or not, this story gets even worse. Ortel was in blackface because he was dressed up as a Hurricane Katrina victim. The Tennessee Tallahassee Democrat newspaper published these photos from 2005, just months after Katrina. Ortel was the Seminole County supervisor at the time. He had a thing on that said Hurricane Katrina.
And figuratively, how? How? Okay, so let's go ahead and say this. Caucasian people, it is never a good. I know for a lot of y'all have a lot of common sense. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of you Caucasians out there that have a lot of common sense. You know, I'm not talking about you. The ones aside from Caucasian people, the other folks out there who think it's a good idea to basically go around in blackface, don't. It is never a good idea. Matter of fact, it's downright insulting. And the reason why I say that is because you guys literally think it's a joke. Now, as you saw with the Covenant kids who don't think there's nothing wrong with it, and just like I said, when you have kids at their age who think there's nothing wrong with blackface, you're going to have a grown-ass man in a very high position of power who had pictures of him being in blackface and think there's nothing wrong with it. So again, this just proves my point. As a child, if you're taught that there's nothing wrong with it, as an adult, you're going to keep on doing it. Now, of course, the guy at the Florida Secretary of State did resign because, let's be honest, you're really in a state that's honestly a very diverse state, and you're going to sit there and show this stupidity. Well, it was a party, and I was dressed up like a Hurricane Katrina victim. There's no joke in that. There's no joke. It's insulting. I'm surprised you honestly didn't get your ass kicked. But again, this is what I'm talking about when it comes to that. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to the whole idea of the culture of no accountability that seems to be happening. And you can call it the Trump effect. I think it happened. I think it's happening way before Trump, honestly. But I think because we have a president that seems to have no accountability, is where they turn around and go with it because it's like, hey, he's not held accountable. Why not me? But again, glad he's resigned. But again, guys, blackface, not a good idea. So the other story I wanted to go over with is that this is a very strange story. Actually, just recently came out about a day ago, and I'm honestly scratching my head over from the obvious, but I'll let you guys make up your minds.
Police officers tied to what investigators call a deadly game. Nathaniel Hendren now charged with involuntary manslaughter in the shooting death of fellow officer Caitlin Alex.
As much as it saddens me and my staff to file these charges, Caitlin and her family deserve accountability and justice.
Investigators arrived at Hendren's apartment Thursday night, minutes after police say he and Alex were playing a game resembling Russian roulette, a game Hendren's own partner told them to stop. Court documents say it began when Hendren, seen here in his police academy graduation video, loaded a single bullet into a revolver and handed it to Alex. That's when police say Alex pointed the gun at Hendren and pulled the trigger. When the gun didn't fire, Hendren took the gun back and pointed it at the victim and pulled the trigger, causing the gun to discharge. The 24-year-old was hit in the chest and later died at a nearby hospital. The department says Hendren was also hospitalized, but won't say why or where he currently is.
From everything I hear about this bright young woman, Caitlin represented the police department in an honorable manner, and she had a very bright future.
A future cut short by a fatal error in judgment. For Today, Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
Okay. Now, first and foremost, let me sit there and say it is very sad that a life was lost. However, I'm just like, okay, so let me make sure I understand this correctly. 3 officers were there. 3 officers were present for this. 2 officers loaded a revolver with a bullet and played a game of Russian roulette. Am I the only person that sits there and goes, how bored are officers? So it's like, hey, I'm going to take a revolver. I'm going to put one in the chamber. I'm going to spin it, and I'm going to lock it up. And we're going to keep playing chicken until one of us gets it. I'm sorry, Russian roulette is the only game you can only play once. And again, who in the world decides to play Russian roulette is my question. That is to me, as a cop, especially as a cop, you're in law enforcement. And you're thinking to yourselves, hey guys, you know what would be a great game? Russian roulette. I'm sorry, did you not have Scrabble? Video games? Something? Playing cards? You had to sit there, take a gun, and be like, click. All right, let's play. No. At the same time, I still think the story is kind of, like, I'll be honest, I think the story is really not holding water. Because if there's 3 people there, you're going to sit there and tell me one person doesn't sit there and immediately think, hey, this is a really bad idea, we shouldn't do it. You would think at one point, be like, hey, this is a bad idea, we really shouldn't do it, let it go. But again, like I said, the whole thing about it makes no sense. A single gunshot wound kills the victim. The other guy who's a part of it has some type of wounds, which I don't know how. I don't know how he has any type of wounds. If they're playing Russian roulette, the only person that really has an injury is the person who, no longer with us. But again, it's just, the whole story doesn't make any sense. I honestly think it's rushed and swept under the rug because it doesn't except for the fact of the matter is that you have policemen toying around with firearms. I am a firearms owner. I know, I take that shit serious. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe in the Second Amendment right to defend yourself. However, there is a discipline. Like, some people sit there and say, well, you don't have to go through classes to own firearms. I kind of think that's bullshit. I really think people need to. I think, if it was up to me about owning firearms, that the requirements I would have is that folks have to go through at least 40 hours of 40 to 45 hours of gun safety training and handgun training, and you need to be evaluated. People would hate me. I'll be honest with you. People would hate me for the simple fact of the matter of what I would like to do. Because, as I said, I didn't have to go out there and get gun safety training. I volunteered. I found 3 different places to where I can get gun safety training and firearms training. And the reason why is the same way I treat like martial arts. It's discipline. You need to have discipline over something that can kill people. Just like you have to have a car, you have to have training. I mean, you have to have some training and experience before you're just allowed to be on your own. In the same sense with a gun, you need to have that training to where you have the discipline to not do stupid shit like this. And again, I feel sorry for the woman's family, and I feel sorry for what they're going through. But this is the exact reason of multiple issues. Aside from the fact of how this happened, I truly believe that's not the story. I truly believe that's the story that was given to go ahead and fast track this so somebody has to take the fall. Now, I'm not saying what happened. I'm just saying, hey, 3 officers and a gun. It could be honestly anything of the sort. But I honestly sincerely doubt that a game of Russian roulette is what led up to this. That's just me. But like I said, it's a weird thing. I honestly just don't get it. But again, I don't think that's the full story. But the last thing we'll talk about, like I said, like I said, for a lot of things, we've honestly had a lot of, I can call it I mean, I usually call it good news at the end of the podcast, so I do, because like I said, in a world where we're actually getting nothing but bad news and droughts and, nothing good ever comes out of it, we do need something good. Now, given the fact that the shutdown is over, given the fact that Roger Stone is now under indictment and will probably be flipped, which are all good things. But like I said, we need something good. And I actually found this story by accident as I was trying to find stories, and this story actually made me feel pretty cool, because like I said, I always love seeing stories like this. Now, I'll let you guys know about the lottery, and this guy in Brooklyn won the $298.3 million jackpot, lone winner. So I believe $300 million. I apologize. So of course he took the cash option, and this is pretty much what he had to say, which I thought was pretty cool.
So excited to be here in Queens to reveal the second largest jackpot winner in New York lottery history. He won the $298.3 million jackpot from the December 26, 2018 Powerball drawing. He hails from my hometown, Brooklyn. Please help me welcome and congratulate David Johnson.
I get up and do my normal routine in the morning, and then I drive around to work. But this time, I didn't go straight to the job. I go by the gas station, and I stop there first and check my ticket, and I look at the board, and I'm like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, oh my God. And I see the number, I signed the ticket, and I gave it to the guy by the clerk, and he checked it. I said, Dave, you win it big, man. I said, yeah, man, I win it big. I jump up and down in the store, man.
Wow, were you the only one in the store?
Only one in the store. I'm with the clerk.
Happened. Well, before the website crashed, that was a new one. So yeah, I love that story just because, we've all heard stories of just Powerball. We've all heard stories, the chance that you win the Powerball, you have a better chance to get hit by a bus, you have a better chance of struck by lightning. You've heard them all. But, it's always cool to see people who, look like decent folks actually, elevate their status a little bit. And I love the fact the story he told was just that, hey, I went in, I saw the numbers, I saw the card, had the clerk check it. The clerk's like, dude, you won. He's like, dude, I know. And the look of elevation now, the look he had on his face was a look that I believe that all of us should have one day. It's a look of just, where your financial problems are honestly the last thing on your mind. And you can tell because that dude's smile is infectious and addictive. And some fact of the matter is, you cannot wipe that smile off that man's face right now, because he just realized, oh, I'm set. Like I said, reasonably, if you get, 298 million, almost 300 million. I think I gave a cash option of 187, 177, some shit like that. Because, the government comes in and takes about 30%, which I always thought was bullshit. But then again, I'm not a greedy person. You got 100 million. Hell, if you have 10 million, if you have 5 billion, literally and figuratively, a logical person can't spend $5 million in a lifetime. A logical person. Now, if you're out here just doing stupid shit, like, buying ridiculous houses, or going in, or trying to open up all these businesses, or you're trying to, you're trying to be the neighborhood bank, the one I'm talking about, where people know that you have money, and they're coming up to you, it's like, hey man, you give me this and I'll give you this back, I'm good for it type of shit. So it's stuff like that can run you dry. But like I said, realistically, a guy cannot turn. I'm sorry. I apologize. An individual cannot spend 20 million, much less 100 million in their lifetime. That's literally legacy money. That's like money you can put away for your children's children, and they will be well off. And I love stories like that because, good things need to happen to good people, and that in turn, gives me hope about the future. And again, congratulations to that guy. You know, I don't think he's going to be driving the truck. I don't think he's going to be driving his dump truck after this. Now, if he still is, kudos to him. He'll probably do it with a smile on his face. But honestly, that man might be vacation for the next few years. But again, good story. I always love the fact of just seeing the honest reaction of folks when they believe they won, because like I said before, people are going to play the lottery regardless. And I'm not knocking you play the lottery. I do it myself, you know, because like I said, I always told myself, if I ever win the lottery, this is going to be, like, I'm going to be honest, personal confession time. If I win the lottery, my 2 shows are going to be my own. That's going to be my job for the rest of my life. You think I'm kidding? I'm not making that up. I will literally make this my full-time job if I win the lottery. You know, because like I said, having well off money leads. It's a stress reliever. It really is. If you think about the fact of the matter is that as adults that we go through, that we have to consider money at the forefront of everything that we do. To think that is the last thing that you take off, that is the burden that you take off. Shh. The fact that you don't have to worry about money. Oh, and you know what? I'm gonna tell you 2 things. There's 2 very happy people in life. Kids who don't have responsibilities, and adults who are well off. They have the most laid back mentality that you would swear up and down the marijuana users. And I can't knock them for that. But again, that's one of those things where, like I said, work to your dreams. But hey, if a winning lottery ticket shortcuts it, can't knock it. You've literally beat the odds. But that's what we're going to leave it here for today, guys, for How the Frack We Got Here. So just some shameless plugging before I leave, before I get off the shindig. Now, with my How the Frack We Got Here, which is usually every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon, I do have my Off Limits podcast also today, which will be later on between 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Hopefully, it will be a lot more than just me on that podcast. Hope to actually have a full house that time. My other buddy, Thomas, who you probably see that's usually on the All of Us podcast with me on the Pick Up Sticks podcast, he actually will have his show To Be Determined, which is a workout podcast where he just goes over, you know, what to eat, what to do, the do's and don'ts of the gym, and pretty much gives his own personal testimony. Because if I could show you the pictures that he was at 8 years ago, and I showed you what he is now, you probably wouldn't believe it. But then again, like I said, he was a pretty Dos Equis kind of guy 8 years ago, but he decided to turn his life around, totally commit to fitness, and that's where he got to now. So his To Be Determined podcast will be later today at 3 p.m. My other 2 buddies, Vaughn, A7 Winspoon on Facebook, actually has several podcasts of his own. He has the I Get That Reference VST, which is a 30-minute podcast over various music videos, video games, just news all together that you might find very interesting, very active show. He also has Rhythmness, where you can reminisce over the rhythm, in which he goes over certain albums and grades them to a 4-tier scale. If you want to know what that is, you tune in to Rhythmness to find out. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ, where he takes the weird, the obscene, the kind of WTF moments of the internet and decides to share them with y'all, decides to share them with us. All 3 shows completely interactive, just like mine. And of course, my other friend Trace Brown on Facebook. He also has The Bump Down. The Bump Down is also a musical podcast where he goes over just what's on the charts, what's on the underground, new and upcoming artists, and basically just having random conversations in between. He also talks about the recording industry and the music industry as a whole. So if you're an up-and-coming artist, or you're just curious about how the music world works, then definitely watch The Bump Down to actually get the inside scoop on that. And he also has a Smoke of Truth, which is an unorthodox but blunt and in-your-face podcast. Not for the faint of heart. I would highly recommend that because the conversation that comes with that, definitely with those shows. Now, all these shows can be found in the I Get That Reference Facebook group. If you look up I Get That Reference, it is a group for all. Anybody can join. The only thing that we do ask is that you're active and participating, which means you're liking, you're sharing, you're posting, if you're being social, because that's what you do on Facebook. You're supposed to be social. Anything short of that would make you a creeper, and we don't really need that type of energy. Aside from that, like I said, all these shows can be found, and of course on the calendar we have up there. We also have YouTube pages, so if you look up I Get That Reference, if you look up The Bump Down, if you look up To Be Determined, if you look up How the Frack We Got Here and Off Limits Podcast, all YouTube pages that have every other podcast that we've done up and running, so you'll be able to watch that and just like, share, and subscribe from there. Now, at the end of every show I say of How the Frack We Got Here, the whole idea is to stay informed. Staying informed means to actually look beyond what you see on the news and what you see on the papers. It's literally digging into research and finding out what's truly there and finding out the truth. And hopefully finding out the truth in your procedures, you'll be able to share with other people to inspire them to do the same, because an informed community can make a whole lot better decisions than an uninformed community, because in an uninformed community, it was got us Trump. So again, guys, like I said, hopefully happy to hear that all the government workers are finally getting their paychecks, hopefully very soon, because sooner will be greater than later. At the same time, hold on, folks, because I think that, I'm not saying Mueller's done, but I honestly think that this is probably going to be the beginning of the end. Hopefully so. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully you guys see you guys later on the Off Limits podcast. I've been Will Buchanan. This has been How the Frack We Got Here. Stay informed. Stay woke. Peace.